It's being able to sit there at the end of the day, knowing everything is handled, knowing that when the worst happens, your family is not going to stress and run around and start fighting each other. Being able to just relax, knowing that you did everything you can to make any transition as easy as possible.
Welcome to the Verdict Signal podcast, where we feature how top attorneys help people make informed choices, avoid common mistakes, and move forward with confidence. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Verdict Signal, and today we're expanding our conversations to the experts who protect what people build, their careers, families, and businesses. I have Eric Mauro, the founder and managing partner of Mauro & Mauro Attorneys at Law, where he focuses his practice on estate planning, probate, and business law. A U.S. Army veteran, Eric earned his Juris Doctor from Baylor Law School and a Master's of Law in Taxation from the University of Denver Sturm College of Law. He works with individuals, families, business owners, homeowners, investors, and real estate professionals to help protect their assets, preserve their wealth, and plan for the future. Known for making complex legal topics practical and approachable, Eric is passionate about educating the community and empowering people to make informed decisions that protect their legacy. So, Eric, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so let's start from the very beginning, Eric. What first got you interested in the legal field?
It's something that I've always been interested in. It's just a matter of when getting there and going through the process to get there. I enjoy helping the people, and I find this field especially allows me to do that and make somewhat of a difference during a hard time.
Okay. And did you know from the beginning that you wanted to be in the estate side of law, or was that kind of a journey that led you to this destination?
So, not in the beginning. Honestly, it was when I took that first estate planning class in law school. I realized that's what's going to lead me to the end goals of what I want, where I wanted to be able to help people and doing something that I understand. So after that first class, I was hooked from there, and then that's all I've been doing since.
Wow. Okay. Now, when you're working with your clients, Eric, what's one thing you wish more people understood about working with an attorney such as yourself?
The biggest issue is they always feel like they need to know all the answers before they come. They need to know who everything's going to go to, how everything's going to happen, and all the financial and details, and their even as much as their deed for the home. In reality, that's what we do. And we sit down, we talk, we have a conversation, a little bit more casual than what we're doing here, right? We just kind of discuss everything and figure out what their goals are. So it's that first consultation that really helps them figure things out. So people get scared and don't want to do the consultation because they think they already have to know everything. I don't believe that's the case.
Okay. And do you ever run situations where people maybe are a little bit more withholding of information from their end because maybe they did something before that maybe wasn't perfectly done right, and they don't want to think that they're going to get in trouble by telling a lawyer, oh, this is like kind of this weird situation? Or is that not so much of a situation that you see?
It doesn't happen often. The most that people withhold sometimes is sometimes the family dynamics. They don't withhold certain information. They just more or less don't disclose, the certain family dynamics so I can plan their estates accordingly. If we have, maybe this child that we haven't spoke to in over a decade, I still need to know that child exists. I still need to know so we can plan accordingly. So the biggest thing is getting them to be open and honest. Sometimes can be a struggle, but usually we get there once they get more comfortable because it's hard to talk about these deep private things with some stranger you just met.
Okay. Now, when it comes to estate law, let's start off with why is it important? Let's start at a very basic question. Why is it important?
It's important to make sure you have a plan because as you know, as the younger folks, as well as some certain communities, they don't want to plan for what could happen. They don't want to plan for their death. And because it's scary, but in the end, without a plan, you're leaving it up to the law to decide how things happen. And even if that's the case, where, say you want everything to go to your spouse and then to your children, without it written down in a will, then essentially the process to get access to assets double in time. I've seen it take up to 2 years, and that's when nobody's contesting. While with the will, you can get access to everything within 3 months.
Mhm.
So it's a big difference, and that people don't realize things don't just happen automatically.
Mhm.
We have a process that we have to go through. And you can take steps to make that process easier. And that's just with after we pass away. While we're still living, other documents like our power of attorney for both medical and durable, which is your finances, are just as important. Because if we were ever incapacitated or as we age, maybe our mind slips a little bit, these documents help our family help us. Otherwise, in order to pay the bills, take care of the children, things get more challenging if we can't do it ourselves and if we don't have these documents in place.
Mhm. Now, what if people come to you and say that, well, I have a will, so I don't need to, that is my estate planning. What do you say to people that like that?
First thing, we talk about what's in their will, and then depending on the situation, we talk about how they can avoid having to use the will. For people with adult children or responsible, adults that they plan on providing for, the will can be used as a backup plan. And the idea is that if we forgot something, that's when the will comes into play because we can make almost all of our assets pass through to our loved ones without actually having to go through the probate process. We can do things like adding beneficiary designations to our 401ks, our IRAs, and even with the checking and savings, you can add those payable on death beneficiaries. And one thing that really catches a lot of people, especially spouses, is the house. Spouses think that just my name's on the deed too, the house automatically comes to me. That's not always the case. But a thing like a transfer on death deed can pass the house automatically after we pass away.
Okay. And you mentioned probate. So could you explain what is probate?
The probate is the court process where essentially the executor you named in your will takes your original will to an attorney, and then they file an application. They go through the process. The court then deems the will to be a valid, proper will, and then we appoint the executor. At that point, the executor can then go through, collect the assets, get access to the banks, pay off any debts, and then distribute any remaining to the beneficiaries.
So if there is no will, there is no estate planning, it's still going to go to probate. But at this point, since there's no direction, how does that work? I guess what's the default? Is it just the court is going to decide what to do?
So if there is no will, no nothing. So then it goes through what's called intestate. So the law decides who your heirs are, right? It goes children and spouse. If we have none, then parents. If they pass on, then siblings. And then it gets real messy when it starts getting into second cousins and things like that. But even if you had that simple, wife and children, they still have to go through the court process. But that's where that jumps from quickly getting in and out in 3 months to a year and a half. Costs get more significant. The process just becomes more difficult.
So if someone says that, well, I'm going to be dead by this point, so it's not my problem anymore, what would you say to someone who kind of has that mindset and that attitude about it?
And, of course, that is the case, right? It is not your problem. But the question is, do you want to allow it to be your family's problem? Or, some people have the fear of like the government taking it or things like that. Essentially, if nobody does anything, it just gets stuck in unclaimed property for the state for years to come. Land, homes, they get foreclosed on due to property taxes not getting paid. And then, so essentially, these people, everything they worked for just disappears. Having an estate plan allows you to choose somebody to essentially get what you worked for your entire life. You've taken all these years to earn everything you did. Do you want them to just disappear? Is really the question.
Now, you mentioned that people has a fear that maybe the government would take their assets after they pass away. Is that a real thing? Can the government actually take the assets, particularly if they have a family, or is it just a fear that was really not not true.
It's a fear that's common, but it's a misconception, right? Um, so with like the home, right? If you don't pay the property taxes, it's going to get foreclosed on. So, but and technically it's the tax assessor that is foreclosing.
Mhm.
But when it comes to like your bank accounts, everything just kind of goes into unclaimed property for the state.
Mhm.
Um, so essentially, the government doesn't actually take it. They can't just, pad their bank account with your assets.
Mhm.
But it does just kind of disappear into this trust, essentially, right? Where it just sits there waiting for somebody to claim it.
Okay. And uh, within that vein, as far as misconceptions, what are some of the other common misconceptions or myths that you hear most often from your clients?
So, you obviously, taxes is a big one. So here in Texas, we don't have an estate tax. And the federally, it's upwards of over 15 million per person. And it's just going to continue to change. So taxes is not really a major concern for most families,
Mhm.
unless they hit that limit. And then also when it comes to like capital gains tax, right? If we sell the home, so when you inherit a home or when you inherit any property, you get what's called a step up in basis, which essentially means that the person inheriting the property gets it as if they purchased it that the day of your death. So they don't actually end up having to pay capital gains tax.
Mhm.
And so taxes is a big one. Everybody is afraid of having to pay out for taxes a lot. But in reality, most beneficiaries, there's minimal to no taxes they have to worry about, except for like, your final income tax and whether or not you have income generating assets like rentals and things like that.
Mhm.
And the other big one is they think it's going to happen automatically. Like I mentioned earlier, they think that I'm on the house too, the house will automatically pass to me. It doesn't work that way. Essentially, in most cases, spouse A owns half the home, spouse B owns half the home. It doesn't automatically go to one another unless you otherwise have stated or if you do an extra step.
Okay, got it. Now, when it comes to businesses, how does businesses throw a wrench, or maybe not throw a wrench, but how does it change the process when it comes to estate planning?
So, a couple things you got to worry about businesses, right? Is the business going to die with you? Some businesses are set up that way, where if I'm not the one running it, it's not running, right? And then some businesses are set up where whether I'm here or not, it's going to continue moving forward. So you have that to think about. And then you also have to think about payroll, getting the bills paid, making sure things are still running smoothly. You don't want too big of a gap of time between when you pass away for when the next person can take over.
Mm.
So a lot of times we add succession planning within the membership agreements or the bylaws or things like that. We make sure that if the business can still run if you're not here for it.
Okay. Now, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people are make before they call a lawyer, such as yourself?
So downloadable wills, right? Pulling your wills from the internet, they work sometimes. They're not state specific most of the time. They miss a lot of keywords or they misconstrue how they want things done.
Mm.
So while they work, they just make things difficult.
Mm.
So a lot of times that is usually the biggest hiccup and only found out during the probate process. There are some courts that will automatically make you go the extra steps just purely because it was like fill in the blank or something in that nature. So that's usually a big issue that you don't find out until it's too late.
Mm.
And the other one is some people think I don't have anything, so I don't need a will. I don't have anything to give out. But what they don't realize, they do have things. They
Mm.
do have a checking account. They do have a bank account. And they do have a home. Or if they don't, they do have cars. They have other assets, right? We go through the probate process to get access to the assets,
Mhm.
like banks and financial institutions and homes and things like that. So the big thing is people feel like just because they're not rich, they don't have millions of dollars in the bank, that they don't need a plan.
Mm.
But in the end, if you don't have a plan, the cost is going to outweigh the benefit for the people that don't have a significant amount of assets. So essentially, it'll just get lost.
Got it. Now, with the advent of AI, I'm sure you get a lot of people coming to you and saying that, oh, I just had AI create this. So can you just look it over and just make sure it's okay? Or I'm sure they have all these other things that come up using AI that are just not correct.
Mhm.
What should people be aware of when they're using AI to help in their estate planning process?
So when it comes to AI, you should be looked at as a tool, not the whole solution, right? It can help you, but it may not always be correct. Especially with the different versions out there, right? ChatGPT will pretend like you're its best friend and always pretend like you're right when half the time you're not. And then certain ones have different things. And it goes back down to that state specific. So while AI could possibly benefit you, there's a good chance there is going to be a detrimental error that unless you know what you're looking for, you're going to miss.
Okay.
So it should be used as a tool, not the whole solution.
Mm. Now, let's say, Eric, that someone has listened to this conversation and they want to now start planning out their estate. Um, but they've never worked with a lawyer before, never don't know any estate planning lawyers. What would be the most important piece of advice you can give to this person as they're doing their search that they can find a lawyer who's knowledgeable, is experienced, and can help them figure out their estate plan correctly?
Yeah. So a lot of times, depending on the county and state, there's usually some form of bar association that has a referral program. So like here in Dallas, we have a Dallas Bar Association where you can call a number and they'll point you in the direction of an attorney that is qualified. And every county around this area has it. If they don't have it, we have a state bar association that also has a referral program. So if you don't know anybody, you don't have your friends that went to your local lawyer, things like that, usually a lot of times the bar associations can point you in the right direction.
Okay. And when you're working with your clients, Eric, how do you set the right expectations so that your clients feel informed and supported through the process? I'm sure you get some clients that come in and they're very open, they're very gung-ho about the whole thing. And I'm sure you get others where maybe they're kind of reluctant, or I'm sure you get sometimes where it's a married couple and one's really into it, and the one's like, oh, my spouse dragged me here. I don't really care. Just get me through this. So how do you set those expectations correctly so that all parties feel informed and supported?
Yeah, a lot of times it's just about talking to them, right? I am like with the spouses, it's his will, her will, right? They can be different, they can be the same. They don't have to agree on everything. So that gives people a choice. They don't feel like they have to be bullied into it. They don't feel like they have to do whatever my spouse is doing. They have their own choices. And a lot of times they do end up being very mirrored to each other. But it's that choice that makes them comfortable. Being able to sit down, answer both of their questions. I try to keep all parties that come in involved. Like I don't like when someone's just sitting there quietly listening. I try to involve them in the back and forth because I want them to believe that their opinion matters and what they think matters. So, and then also it brings up a lot of talking points amongst spouses. So I go with the low pressure situation, right? If they want to go home and think about it, I send them home to think about it. When it comes to getting your estate plan done, it's never too early, but there is a deadline. There is a too late, right? Depending on your competency, what's going on with you, medical situations, things like that. So, I inform them that they can think about it, but they don't want to wait too long because you never want it to just kind of keep on hitting the back burner, and then suddenly it's too late. So the idea is just making them comfortable, making them understand the importance and explaining things in a way that they understand. Because not everybody has the same background, not everybody has the same knowledge base, not everybody did thousands of hours of research on AI and Google before coming in. So it's just a matter of realizing where they're at and adjusting to it.
Okay. And when it comes to the future, where do you think the future of estate law is going? Like, are there any big changes out there that people should be aware of?
Not significantly at this point. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's that I don't think technology is at the point where it'll just erase it. And then even with that's just one side of things, right? The probate side, the courts still require an attorney and they still require that extra step. So when it comes to estate law, while there's no big laws out there that are about to shift the whole dynamics, it's still just kind of a matter of getting people's lives in a plan so then that things can happen, and adjusting based off of their specific needs.
Okay. And when it comes to your practice, what's the vision you have for your practice?
This is what we do. We're a specialist, right? We're not dipping into a little bit of everything. This estate planning and probate is what we do. So I plan on growing that significantly and trying to reach out to different counties and different areas. We even go the extra mile and we travel to our clients when they're unable to travel to us. Because not everybody, especially as we get older, getting out of the house is a little bit more difficult. Or if we are in a medical situation or we're in the hospital and things like that. So we go out to them a lot of times.
I see. Okay. Now, Eric, I think we talked a lot about the importance of estate planning, but just so we can try and hit the point home a little bit more, is there maybe a story that comes to mind, either a case that you worked with or ones that you've seen out there of what can happen if someone does not do their estate planning properly, and what could be the repercussions of that?
So if you don't do your estate plan, say you do nothing, right? And now we got your family trying to get access. Families end up fighting a lot when it comes to it, especially when money's involved and especially when they're already hurting because you're the loss of you and things like that. So without something actually in writing, without it being handled properly, then essentially they're going to spend time and money fighting in court over who gets what, who gets the coin collection, things like that. A lot of times that the plan itself says this is what mom and dad wanted, right? This is how we want it. We wanted child A to get mom's watch. We wanted child B to get, the gun collection. But when we don't specifically state these kind of things, we're leaving it up to the kids. Well, usually we think that's fine. More often than not, they end up arguing and they have to fight it out in court. And then so the attorneys have to go there. Everybody ends up spending a lot more money. And the only people that end up winning are essentially the attorneys that are fighting it for you, right? And these kids are fighting over things, sentimental items, or sometimes it's cash, because they believe, like, I took care of mom and dad at the end, I should get more. And things like that. So, those kind of situations occur more often than you would prefer. But the best way to combat that is to have a will in place, is to have a plan. So, because even when you have everything passing on probate, the will is that backup plan just in case the kids fight. Because then, it shows what we wanted to happen. And there's kind of checks and balances in place so that if a child fights, they can end up being disinherited completely. So we put like no contest clause and things like that within the wills.
Got it. Okay. Well, Eric, I do have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at maurolawyers.com. Now, last question for you. What does peace of mind mean to you?
It's being able to sit there at the end of the day, knowing everything is handled, knowing that when the worst happens, your family is not going to stress and run around and start fighting each other. Being able to just relax, knowing that you did everything you can to make any transition as easy as possible.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Eric sharing his expertise. So, Eric, where can people contact you in your practice?
So we are located in Mesquite, Texas. Our phone number is 972-656-1446. All you have to do is give us a call and we can get you in for a free consultation.
Awesome. Well, Eric, this is great. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thanks for sharing your message.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Verdict Signal podcast. Any questions? Please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.